Welcome and thank you for coming. Today we're going to be talking about another book by Master Okawa called An Unshakable Mind, and it's a really beautiful book to really create a beautiful core for your life. I'm going to focus a little bit today on overcoming anxiety and distress because some of our members here in Queensland have been having a little bit of anxiety in their lives and difficulties in their lives. I mean, all of us have, but I think lately, perhaps even more than usual. And a lot of other people in Queensland are experiencing difficulties with things like flooding and other, problems in their lives. I once saw a Buddhist monk give a seminar, and he was asked a question about somebody who was in a really difficult time. There'd been a car accident in their lives, and I think they'd lost somebody, and they were undergoing a very traumatic time in their lives, and the Buddhist monk was giving a sermon and was asked the question, what can we do for that person? And his response was, too late this time. You need to do the preparation before the trauma happens. And I don't want to admit that he was right, but I think that certainly if you can prepare your mind in advance, then you're much more prepared for the ups and downs that are certain to happen in all of our lives. All of our lives go through difficulties. Everybody experiences difficulties. Nobody lives a smooth life all the way through. You really haven't lived if you haven't experienced some sort of ups and downs. And so to prepare our mind in advance gives us a stable sort of setting for that. I'll talk about this more, but talk about creating a broad view of life. So studying different areas, understanding life from many different perspectives, from other people's perspectives, and understanding how great people solve their problems. So you can do that in a number of different ways, but certainly studying and reading, literature and books is a great way of understanding how people have solved the similar problems to you, the ones that you have. So to create that bigger, broader mind, and to confront anxiety without losing momentum in your life. So to keep on moving, even when there's obstacles in your path, to push through without going into a slump. You can create a lot of momentum, and the momentum creates a sort of stability as well. Okay, so having a broad mind creates stability, but having momentum also creates stability. So you can sort of push through the distress. And I'll talk about that more as we go as well. And so the goal is to become a solid, reliable person, somebody that other people can depend on and come to rely on, and that you can help other people through their difficulties by being strong and centered yourself. This is the sort of thing that I really think we want to move towards being. First of all, people who can smile in all kinds of circumstances. And I've purposely chosen photos here of elderly people smiling because I guess elderly people have a little less to smile about, because they've got different pains and things that come with being elderly. But when they smile, it's as beautiful, I think, as a child smiling. A genuine smile makes everybody beautiful. And to be able to be a person who can smile through difficulties and really offer a smile to others, it's a real giving act to be able to give a smile to other people because it brings a warmth to other people. And so we want to be people who can smile even in difficult circumstances. And the other side is to have a stable mind that creates peace and progress around us. So we can sort of uplift people around us by having stability. And of course, Mandala here has been a pillar for the whole world. And he's been through some very dark times, but become one of those people who others can, depend on and really inspired many, many lives around him, countless lives. So whether we live an unhappy life, sort of led by fatalistic ideas, or we choose to live a more positive life, is really dependent on how we see ourselves, how we envisage ourselves to be. And our beliefs about ourselves and our own limitations and our own potential really dictate who we become. So if we can change our thinking, we can change who we are. So if you see yourself like dirt, and many people see themselves as little more than a chunk of dirt, right? We're just matter floating through space, and we don't see ourselves as being anything more than you know, a rock that you might kick in the street. So the example, the metaphor, I guess, is around an uncut diamond. So this bit of rock, you could see it on the street and you know, you wouldn't think twice about throwing it away. It looks like a bit of broken glass. But the thing is that that is the same diamond as this one, plus the chunk that they cut off to get it a good shape. So it's an uncut diamond. So we don't recognise it as that, but if we know its value, if we recognise its value, then we know that we need to polish it, we need to cut it, we need to work at it, and a lot of work went into turning this into that. Very difficult, very high art, being able to, you know, and having the courage to cut a diamond like that. So it's not an easy task to create this beautiful gem, but if you know the worth, then you'll make the effort, okay? Whereas if you think you're just the person who's tossed about by fate, has no power in their lives, is just pushed along through life and becomes a victim, then you'll never make the effort to refine your mind. And the process of cutting and grinding and polishing for us, for our souls, for our minds, is the hardships in life. The difficulties that we face in life are for the purpose, we believe, of polishing our souls, of refining our minds, of improving and strengthening our will and our being, our core being. So the nature of that diamond within is that our souls are connected to the highest creator of the universe. Our souls are divine. So you can say that countless ways. You can describe that nature in as many ways as there are people you know, existing. But I like to say children of God. I like to say that we're the children of God because it also suggests a nurturing, a teaching sort of nature between us and the universe. So the universe is nurturing us to grow. So when my little Amy comes to me and says, I can't put my pants on, or I can't tie my shoelaces, I don't every time do things for her. I don't get her dressed every time because I want her to learn, okay? And so I think our relationship with the divine is the same. Some people throw up their hands, why would God put us through this hardship? But when you think about the relationship, a good parent doesn't just, you know, give everything. They encourage and nurture and try to uplift the child. And I think that saying that we're children of God encourages us to think and to become more than we currently are, and to aspire to be more than we currently are. Having Buddha nature within us is a beautiful way of saying it as well. And so to see our life as a workbook of problems that matches the soul training that we require. So the parent matches the training to the child. I don't yell at Amy because she can't do algebra. I encourage her to tie her shoelaces or to pull on her shoes by herself. So it's matched to our soul, and it doesn't, it's the things that we go through in our lives are things that we can learn from, overcome, and push through. And in that, we're safe and nurtured. So just to have a belief that we're safe, we're in an environment that is totally safe. So I'm not saying that we won't all die in the end, of course, but our souls, we believe, are eternal and persist and grow. And it's a really, really beautiful situation to be in once you recognize that. So those ideas create within us a stable core. So if you know these things, and many religious people say the same things in many different ways because they want other people to feel the same stability and happiness and joy that comes from having deep roots in strong ground. Okay? Because to know these truths is to have a strong core inside yourself that creates an incredible stability within yourself. To know that you're an eternal being and, you know, indestructible in that way creates a confidence that you couldn't have if you just think that you're dirt being pushed along by the, by the world. The more you believe this to be true, that you have this inner core, the beautiful inner core, beneath all the dirt and beneath the jagged edges, we have this beautiful core, and the more that you can believe it, the more brilliantly you'll shine, as you polish it, the more brilliantly you shine, and the light that you radiate, because in this process, this joy comes out of us. In the process of refining our minds, happiness comes out. And the happiness that we feel encourages us to make further progress, and it inspires others as well. So, hopefully others catch fire, with that inner flame as well, and it creates further happiness and joy in the world. Having a momentum to improve yourself creates a stability just because you keep moving. So the RO symbol, the Happy Science symbol, of course, it's Master Okawa's, Ryuho Okawa, his initials. But it's also symbolizing a halo and a person taking steps. And it's taking steps towards enlightenment. So that symbol is signifying taking steps towards greater enlightenment. And I love that it's a progressive, it's showing that we're making progress and we're striving to take steps towards becoming better people. So I think that's a lovely sort of symbol. And the higher our perspective, the greater the obstacles that we can step over. So, truly great people straddle problems that others think are, we say, oh, it's human nature, we can't solve this problem. But other people with a higher perspective can step past that, step over top of that, because they have that higher perspective. There's a limit to how strong we can become. A bodybuilder might be able to lift 10 times as much as me, probably more, but there's really no limit to the amount of strength of will that we can acquire. When we look at people, we all seem roughly the same, but some people seem to be able to achieve so much more in their lives. It makes me feel so insignificant when I see some great people through history and the things that they've been able to achieve. It really does inspire us to refine our minds more. And that strength of will, that strength of character can be really improved almost in an unlimited sort of way. I love this image of the iceberg. Have this vast mass under the surface. So what we see of people on the surface, the self that we show to others, is only a fraction of who we are. But the people who are really great and really stable have a vast wealth underneath the surface of wisdom and knowledge and empathy and an ability to see and connect with the world and other people. And it's all in reserve under the surface. So the people, our world is full of celebrities who rise to fame, or people who get sudden credit and sudden attention. And everybody looks to them and sees the self on the surface. But we can't judge, you know, just on sight like that, how much they have in reserve under the surface. And so some people fall just as quickly. You know, their true self kind of comes out and things change a little and they crash. They come down hard for some people. So they rise fast, but they don't have the reserves to persevere, and they come back down. So to create a kind of reserve in your character, studying is really important. So studying from different sources, things that you don't normally necessarily connect with, you know, not just the things that you're most interested about, but the things that you understand the least of, the things that are a mystery to us, the things that confuse us perhaps, allow us to broaden that base that we have in reserve. So, I mean, I always complained about math, studying math in school. It wasn't my strength, and it wasn't until after I left school that I started to see value in, you know, mathematics and numbers. And I tried to learn as best I could for myself after I'd left school, and that effort that I made to expand myself in a direction I wasn't comfortable with paid off when I studied multimedia and programming. So in that new field, I was more comfortable and more capable because of that effort I'd made to expand. So the broader our knowledge and the broader our wisdom, and I think listening and empathy are really important around this as well. So to understand other people and to hear what other people are saying, and not just to project ourselves onto other people. It's so easy to think that we know other people. We look at other people and, oh yes, that's just such and such, and they're just doing such and such. And we think that we know other people so well. But in truth, we just make generalizations, and they're just convenient lies, and we don't deepen ourselves by doing that. Jesus said to create a treasure in heaven. So we're creating treasure in heaven, and for us the meaning of that is to, exactly as we just talked about with the iceberg, you're creating a greater mind and virtues within your own mind. So when this life is over, we return to the other world, to the spirit world, and we can only take with us our mind. And so the treasure that we create within our mind is all that we can keep. So when Jesus talks about creating treasure in heaven, it's creating a virtuous soul, creating a great mind, because that's of true value. Okay? Even though we can't see it and it's unlikely to be recognized in this world, it's the real value that we have to accumulate in this world. Don't think that failure is a reflection on who you are. Failure is really just a gateway to improve yourself. Every failure is an opportunity to learn to identify one of your weaknesses. And as you progress, improving on your weak points, the opportunity to identify a new weak point, a weakness in your mind and in your thinking, becomes extremely valuable because it's quite difficult to do. So times at which we fail are really valuable opportunities to learn, and it can be quite painful to start to understand that we're not thinking in the right way, and because we realise that other people have perhaps seen us more clearly than we see ourselves. So other people normally have identified a weakness before we identify it ourselves. And we're just responding to the failure after the fact. Also, not to expect more money and responsibility and credit than we've earned, because it's like the iceberg. If it becomes too top heavy, if our expectations for reward become greater than our merit to support them, we'll eventually topple over. So a lot of people, an easy example is promotion in a company. Many people are promoted above the level of their ability. The whole institution becomes unstable because of it. But to wish for the opportunity to grow and to grow, to get credit for the growth that for the effort that we actually make, because otherwise it's like living on credit. It's like you have a credit card and you're just spending freely because you can, but you're creating a bubble and it's bound to burst. So of course life has ups and downs, where we can be sure of it, and I pray that we all have beautiful, peaceful lives. But for many people, it's just not the case, and tragedies do happen. But to see past that, to see how things, how we do recover, how things do get better, and to play the long game by improving ourselves and continuing to make effort, stops us from falling into despair and becoming broken people. Our society is so full of people who have become broken through hardships, and they barely know that they need to, put their head up and look up to the sky and stand up straight and try and make effort again. So they fall instead and don't really know to make effort to stand up. And it's because it's difficult. Unless you have some guidance or a helping hand up, it can be difficult to make that effort. So just to remember in the hard times to try and, of course, things are traumatic and you stumble, but not to fall, and to remember to get back up. The other thing to remember though is that in the highs, not to become too conceited. So many people have high moments and they think, oh, those silly people, they're not as great as me because I've got this high at the moment. And so they start to look down on other people and think themselves somehow different. And of course that they're not learning the lesson, they're not making steady efforts. And so without steady effort in life, the downfall begins because they're not continuing to push. So they lose momentum and they crash. And it's all the more hard because, they've seen the high and suddenly they crash. So, just to continue steadily, every day, humbly making effort in your life. So, there's many people giving seminars, and much busier seminars than this, who talk about, fast wealth, fast success, quick ways to be respected. But I think it's at least as valuable to think about steady progress, daily progress, making a little bit of effort every day. If you lay down in the evening and you haven't made a little bit of effort to improve your mind, to broaden your mind, to improve yourself, get back out of bed. Go and read something. Open a book. Because tomorrow it could pay off. So being pushed down like that by life, of course you're looking for a way to pick yourself back up. And so one way that people very often do that is by looking to blame others. So you push the blame onto somebody else instead of standing up. You say, the reason I can't stand up is this other person or the government, or in this case, Julia Gillard is an easy person to blame. You blame the Prime Minister for all of our worries and concerns, and people do this very easily, blame the government. And I'm not saying that the government doesn't have responsibilities. I'm not saying that there's not justification for laying blame. What I'm saying is that an attitude of placing blame takes your attention from the act of standing up, and making effort for yourself, which is the thing that's going to create, treasure in heaven and real progress, like lasting progress. Worldly material progress comes and goes, but lasting progress is the progress of strengthening our minds, becoming stronger by exerting our will to make effort in the world. So to blame others only means that we fail to make effort, and it can become a kind of toxic poison in ourselves if we start to take self-pity. So self-pity is the attitude that I deserve love because I'm disadvantaged or dysfunctional. And so if you think like that, you can't thrive because your self-worth depends on being dysfunctional. So you can't, on a subconscious level, you don't want to be successful. You want to be pitiable. And it's a tragedy that, people aren't told that they need to, I mean, it's okay to accept help from others when you need it, but to become the kind of person who needs pity from others for their own self-worth and to need to rely on others in that way, it's difficult, right? And I don't want to sound heartless. I want it to sound encouraging, because I know that to hear this while you're experiencing that is incredibly hard. Yeah, I mean, it's a very difficult thing to hear, but there's the lighter side is that if you can change your thinking, you can change who you are. You can always change who you are. So it's not that I have a diamond within and this person doesn't have a diamond within. We're all diamonds within. We're all unpolished. We're all got jagged edges. But the difference is, one person might be making effort and polishing a facet right now, and the other person just needs a little encouragement to get polishing. Right? So this overflowing goodwill is a kind of attitude of abundance that we want to at least believe that we're living in abundance, that we have plenty, that we're the kind of people who can share, even when it's our last meal, we'd share it with others. And to have an attitude that's not just give and take. So children in the playground, children playing, have an idea about what justice is, about what's fair and what's not. And their idea of fair is you break something in half and they say they've got the bigger bit. It's not fair, right? And there's a kind of logic to that. I mean, it makes sense, right? One person's got a bigger piece than the other person. You can understand. Any child can understand. But there's a higher ideal than that sort of justice. And it's compassion, it's love, mercy. These ideas transcend justice. So to have mercy for others, to have compassion for other people, lifts us above those worldly problems. So our concern is no longer with getting the biggest piece, it's with the happiness of others. So we say to other people, you can have my piece. And we become happier. I'll guarantee you, we'll become happier when we're not arguing and fighting over the size of our piece, and we're making other people happier. And the nature of the universe is that abundance will come. We have trust, we have faith, and ups and downs will happen, but abundance will come. So we can feel secure and safe in that. So overflowing goodwill is the attitude that just washes away all that negativity. It means that we can just step over all of those concerns about what's fair and what's just, and it just washes it away, and it makes us, people again and bigger hearts. So that's a really important part of this book. The amount of information in this book is just astounding. There's no way I can cover even a fraction of it here today. But the idea of overflowing goodwill is a really important part of this book, and I'd encourage people to read it again and again. Our perspective is almost always skewed, so we tend to remember for a very long time all the things that we've done for other people, and we keep a little count in our minds of all the things we've done for our loved ones, for society in general. We keep a tally of all the things we've done, but we don't tend to notice when other people are doing things for us. So in our minds, it becomes out of balance. We think that we're always doing good things for other people, but when you really stop to look, it's so rare that we do something selfless for other people. Even the best of us, it's a rare occurrence. So our minds skew this. We have a tendency to see reality in a skewed sort of way, and it creates unhappiness because we think it's not fair. So this idea of we're so hard done by, they don't love me enough, creeps in, and it starts to poison our relationships. So don't think too much about the difficulties. See them, learn lessons, step over them, and keep on going. And having that attitude of just continuing to make effort will carry you past them and on to the next challenge. To check that we're not denying our own potential. It's we really do underestimate our own abilities, and so just as we fail to see other people, we fail to see ourselves correctly. Worries about finances can be stem from just a lack of confidence. So you can worry, oh, what happens if I lose my job, is actually a concern that you may not have the ability to get another one or to earn money in another way. So this worry creeps in, and it's a lack of confidence. So to have that stable, steady mind that says, I can, I will, doesn't matter if there's obstacles. Of course things are difficult, but I'll persist and I'll succeed in the end. Having an attitude like that means that we can set the worry aside, and we don't need to spend time creating anxieties around things that just drag us down like that. I'll give you a worksheet. So these ones, it's fairly self-explanatory, but just to look at what setbacks have you had in your life. So consider the worksheet as we watch the video, and then we'll do a short meditation, 26 minutes.
Riding out the stormy seas of fate. Today's title is Riding Out the Stormy Seas of Fate. There is nobody born into this world who has no troubles. Being troubled means that you are alive. I also think that it is a way for you, yourself, to ascertain how far you can endure these rough seas of fate or trials from God. There are some people who seem to enjoy being buffeted by the waves and struggling to keep from drowning. So, if there is such a tendency in your mind, you need to correct it. It is what we call loving unhappiness syndrome. And I have written some books on this type of syndrome. Human beings tend to love unhappiness without realizing it themselves. It's not that easy to find the tendency. Other people might see it to a certain extent, but you can't see it yourself. A pattern of failures is produced in your mind when the past experience of sorrow or anguish or mistakes you made become engraved deep in your mind. Then when something similar occurs, you get the feeling, something like this has happened before, and slip smoothly into that pattern of failures. And the same thing happens again with the same result. The same goes for failures at work and failures in human relationships. When similar symptoms start to appear, you think, the same thing might happen again. And the phenomenon occurs exactly as the bitter memories of the past. People generally find it easy to blame their unhappiness on external forces. They easily blame other people or their environment. Never would they imagine that they themselves create the pattern of failures, and that they actually love that pattern. That is why unhappy people have a tendency to repeat their unhappy experience time and time again. So if the same thing happens twice, 3 times, or more, you need to turn around and look at yourself with a third-person perspective. You need to enter the middle way and observe yourself again with no preconceptions. The reason for this is that though I teach that it is important to love people, in fact, people want to be loved by someone. In fact, we are glad to be loved, aren't we? Being loved makes us happy. However, it's hard to get people to really love you. You want to be loved, but people won't give you their love. So you try for their sympathy instead. You try to get people's sympathy. This tendency appears. You place yourself in a position where people will sympathize with you. So what kind of situation gets people's sympathy? I think that you all have a fair idea of that. For example, you fall ill. People sympathize, don't they? Even when 2 rivals are on bad terms, if one of them falls ill, the other person's attitude suddenly changes, doesn't it? He shows his kindness and stops his attacks, doesn't he? So when someone does not have the courage to actively seek a reconciliation, rather than making an effort, he in fact wants to escape from the fight by becoming ill. There are many people who love poverty. There are rather a lot of them, you know. Generally speaking, a lot of them, in fact, put the blame on others, on the company, on the government, or on the world economy, don't they? A fair number of people are like that. Employees, of course, but even company presidents are included. If you tend to want to attract people's sympathy and be comforted by them, then you should desist from this a little. You see, it doesn't do any good at all. You might get a few words of comfort, but in fact, this does not fundamentally solve anything. In general, they say that with the support of around 300 people, you will succeed in whatever you turn your hand to. You need effort and diligence, and of course ability and luck, as well as the support of many people. If you have the support of around 300 people, then generally speaking, whatever you are doing is on the path to success. Be it a singer, a restaurant owner, a hairdresser, whatever the kind of business or shop, success is practically certain with that many people behind it. It is a tremendously great talent to become popular with many people and win their support. Mind you, not many people realize this. Someone who seeks for sympathy saying, "I'm just so unhappy, please feel sorry for me," will find it hard to win the support of 300 people. People might feel sorry for him once, but when it gets to the second or third time, they get tired of it. A person who people want to meet again and again is not someone who wants sympathy, but someone who makes others happy. Someone who somehow influences you in a good way whenever you meet. Someone who inspires you. Someone who offers clues on how to live your life. Someone who inspires courage. Or again, someone who cheers you up when you are feeling down. You want to meet someone like that again and again. So you have to turn your way of thinking on its head. If you think that you are a sympathy seeker, and it is very easy for sensitive people to become one, you have to make an effort to change. You see, people don't like egoists, do they? You don't like them, but you never know if other people see you as one. Which is why I say, look at yourself as if you were looking in a mirror. This is the teaching both of self-reflection and of love. Do to others what you think to be good, isn't it? That is what I would like to say.
I hope you've enjoyed today, and thank you very much for coming. And any questions?